Welcome to the PJ Hoop Podcast. I'm your host, PJ, and if this is your very first time checking out my podcast, first and foremost, I want to thank you for taking the time out of your day to check out my podcast. I promise you won't be disappointed. Now, on my podcast, I predominantly go over the NBA, but I also like to cover college, high school, and international basketball. Today's episode, we're going to be doing our 2025-2026 season preview for the SouthEast Division. So that entails the Atlanta Hawks, the Charlotte Hornets, the Miami Heat, the Orlando Magic, and the Washington Wizards. Now, last episode, I covered the Central Division, and I'll leave that up in the corner for you guys to go ahead and check out. But today, I want to also give you guys kind of the parameters and the topics that I like to go over with each team. The first being is the team's free agency. So this could be players that are going to be upcoming free agents, or it could be contracts that I just kind of want to highlight with you guys. Also, I like to go over the team's rookies, if they have any rookies coming on board, kind of give you my expectations and opinions about that. Then I go over the team's expectations / my opinion about the team, understanding that I'm being vague when I'm I'm trying to be vague when I'm giving that to you guys. I don't want to give away my season predictions, but it's hard. It's really hard to be vague during that, but I'm going to try my best to be with you guys. And then also I like to go over players to watch for on the team, and I like to close it out with the team's draft capital. Now, before we get started, I want to let you guys know this is being recorded Wednesday, September 17th, 2025. And so let's dive into it. So the first team that I'm going to start off with is the Atlanta Hawks. So Atlanta last year finished the season 40-42. They finished 18th in offensive efficiency and 19th in defensive efficiency. And now we're going to go ahead and dive in and talk about their free agents. So obviously the biggest elephant in the room is Trae Young. He has a player option next summer for $48 million. Kristaps Porzingis will be a free agent next summer. They got Luke Kennard that'll be a free agent next summer. Dyson Daniels will be a restricted free agent next summer, so this is a contract year for him. And then Mohamed Guy has a club option. Now, for rookies to watch for on this team, they drafted my guy Ace Anul. And in my opinion, I think I loved him coming out. I loved him in college at Georgia. I talked about him in my pre-draft episode with you guys and my post-draft episode. I talked to him even during my college basketball season. I like Newell a lot. I think, in my opinion, I think he will be an impactful rookie right out the gates. I think also, I think it's a pretty good chance that he's going to get some minutes on this team, because if you look at their front court, knock on wood, of course, but this front court is known for dealing with injuries. So I do think Newell will get some run with this team, and I think he's going to be an impactful rookie. So my team expectations / thoughts about this team, again, I'm going to try and be as vague as possible, but I've been very consistent with this, and I stick by this. I think this Atlanta team goes as Jalen Johnson goes. I'm pretty sure I've said that throughout the year last year, and I said that during my season, my Atlanta Hawks season preview last summer. I feel the same way. And Jalen Johnson, he comes from Duke. I'm a Duke fan, so of course I'm a cheer for Jalen Johnson. But yeah, I think this team goes as he goes. I think Trae Young has shown us enough that he can't be the best player on a championship team for one reason or for another. But also, if you guys just think about it, typically the best player on the championship team is usually not the guy Trae Young, is Trae Young even 6 foot? Are we like for sure he's 6 foot? I don't know. I don't know if he's for sure even 6 foot, but let's give him 6'1" to be friendly. All right. Like, for the most part, I think we all can agree. Typically your best player on the team, and the player that's the best player on the championship team, is usually not a guy that's 6'2" and under. Steph and Isaiah are very rare. Even if you want to give some love to AI, you can give love to AI too. But for the most part, it's usually not this small of a guard that's going to be the best player on the championship team. So to me, it's only right that this team, as soon as they drafted Jalen Johnson, I felt like this was going to be his team. And I think this is, last year, he was on his way to being an all-star. He was on his way, I think, to averaging 20, 10, and 5 on like really good shooting numbers. I think he was shooting like 50, what was he shooting? I think like 52, 53% from the field maybe. He was shooting he had some really good shooting splits. From three, not yet. His three ball still got some working on to do. But I do think this team goes as Jalen Johnson goes. And also, I think a big thing for me that I'll be paying attention to is how does this team look mid-December? That's kind of my benchmark for this team, because if this whole team's going to be healthy, there's no reason for this team not to be a top 4 team in the East, in my opinion, if they're going to be healthy. So that is for sure something that I will be looking out for. If this team gets, if it does get out to a really bad start and things are just not working with this team, I can see a world where upper management looks at this roster and says, let's get rid of Trae Young and let's lean more into Jalen Johnson before the trade deadline. I can see that. I'm not calling for that. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but it would be foolish of me to come on here and tell you guys that's not a thought that's in my mind. So that's something for sure. It's in the back of my mind and something that I'm mindful of. But I do expect this team to potentially surprise some people. And if healthy, I do think they got a really good chance to be a top 4 team in the East. And so that's something that you guys should be watching out for. But obviously, most importantly, what's going to probably be hanging over this franchise head this whole year is the whole Trae Young thing. What do they decide to do with Trae Young? Do they want to extend him? And I think the most important thing, too, with contract negotiations now in the NBA, and we kind of seen it really show itself this last summer, this year, was numbers, right? Like, how much money are you actually willing to give a player? Because these teams now are going to be able to give players, we're talking $400 million contracts, but truly be told how many players in the NBA actually deserve that kind of money. I would argue maybe 8, 9 players probably truly deserve that kind of money. But there's guys, and most of these guys are going to think that they deserve that money. So I'm interested to see what the number comes in at and what number is Trae Young willing to accept to stay in Atlanta with this young core is what I'll be paying attention to, and something I think we all should be paying attention to. And also, another thing with this whole Trae Young thing is I wonder does Trae Young show his frustrations, or is he going to be a team player throughout the whole year, knowing that he doesn't have that security after this year, knowing that this organization may want to move off of him? That's something to pay attention to, because Trae Young, I think he's a pretty emotional player, I would say. So I'm just interested to see how that dynamic works, knowing that he potentially could be on his way out and this organization does not see him as a long-term fit. That's for sure the biggest thing hanging over this team's head going into the year. So I'm interested to see how that goes. So let's talk about my players to watch for. One, I just named him. It's Jalen Johnson. Most importantly is him staying healthy and then taking command of this team. For me, last year, he was on my most improved list last year. And he was right there before he got hurt, in my opinion. He was right there. So to me, I think it's time for him to become an all-star. He's going into year 5. This will be his first year in his prime. I think Jalen Johnson becoming an all-star, I think that is a realistic expectation for this player, and that's the expectation I have for him. If he can make All-NBA, I mean, that is exceeding my expectation for this year, but All-Star should be something that he's aiming for. And then another player, I just named him, is Trae Young. Contract year. Does Trae Young go full psycho and put his name into the MVP conversation and potentially have like a Steve Nash MVP type of year? That is something that could potentially happen. All right. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but again, he's on my players to watch for list. Does he allow his frustration and division with him in the front office? Does he allow that to fuel him during the year? Or does he allow that to make him want to crumble and to just fold up and to just play with anger and not be a team player? I'm interested to see how does Trae Young respond to that. And again, a Steve Nash MVP type of season is in the cards for him, I believe. But we'll see. And what I mean by that is it could potentially look like him playing more off the ball. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Because I even said this last summer that I wanted to see him playing more off the ball, and I wanted to see Jalen Johnson with the ball more in his hands. And to some extent, that did happen, but I think it needs to happen more. But we'll see. We'll see what happens within that. So let's go over their draft capital. And yeah, I could sit up here and talk about Dyson Daniels, taking another leap. Or I could talk about Ricochet. But I wanted to talk about those two guys because I think these two guys are the main. I think the passing of the torch between these two guys and then Trae Young's contract, I think, are so monumental for this franchise that I wanted to highlight those because Dyson Daniels, I don't think really has much more upside offensively as a player. I just don't think he would reach it. I don't think he's going to reach it necessarily. And then with Richeche, I expect him to kind of go potentially through a sophomore slump. And right now he's not, I don't expect Richeche to become the third option on this team this year. So I just felt comfortable highlighting those two players because I think these two guys are these are the keys to this team. So that's why I highlighted those two guys. If you guys are wondering why I didn't talk about anybody else. So draft capital 2026, it goes to 2026. They get either New Orleans pick or the Bucks pick. And then also the Spurs have draft rights to their own pick. So in simple terms, Atlanta's going to get two. They're going to get two picks regardless. They're either going to get either New Orleans or the Bucks pick, depending what spot it lands. And then either they're going to have their own pick or they're going to have the Spurs pick, just depending if the Spurs want to swap with them in 26, okay? So they'll have two first-round picks regardless. 2027, it goes to the Spurs. 2028, they have the swap rights to either Cleveland or Utah. And then 29 to 32, they have their own. You guys let me know down in the comment section below. What are your thoughts about this Atlanta Hawks team? And how far do you guys truly think this team could go if they're healthy? And what things within this team and what players outside of the ones I named do you guys think are key contributors to this team's success moving forward? You guys let me know down in the comment section below. The next team that I want to talk to you guys about is the Orlando Magic. Now, last year, Orlando finished 41-41. They finished 27th in offensive efficiency and second in defensive efficiency. Now, the team's free agency. So, Paulo signed his contract. And I think a lot of people don't, maybe a lot of people do, maybe they don't know this. But Paulo's contract will take up 30% of the cap if he's named to All NBA. So, currently right now, it sits at $239 million. If he makes All NBA, it could go up to $287 million. So that's something just to be mindful of going into this year. Also, Tyus Jones and Mo Wagner are set to be free agents. And so that's their free agent. That's kind of like their free agency situation. Rookies. So they drafted Jace Richardson out of Michigan State. So for him, my expectation for him is, honestly, I kind of expect a gap year from him. Basically just learning and just taking a back seat and just learning under Tyus Jones is what I'm expecting out of him. And then probably going into the 2026, 2027 season is when actually we'll probably see more of Jace getting his run. If he gets some playing time this year, I wouldn't be totally shocked because he was a really good contributor at Michigan State and actually shot up draft boards through his play through the Big Ten. So I wouldn't be totally surprised, but I more so expect him to have a gap year and learning under Tyus Jones before we actually see him getting meaningful minutes. I know another player that they ended up drafting was Noah Pinda. I kind of expect the same thing out of him, kind of a gap year. I think he kind of has a better chance at playing than Jace just because of his defensive versatility and his defensive energy that he can give. So that's all I really have, but these are two good. I mean, Orlando was one of my draft winners. I said that on my post-draft episode. And these two kids for sure will be a part of Orlando's rotation moving forward. No doubt. I have no doubts about that. So team expectations / thoughts. So they'll be playing the Memphis Grizzlies in Germany and England in January. So I know a lot of people were down on the Desmond Bane trade, but personally I wasn't, just because I'm under the impression that you needed to cash in some of those chips while Paulo was young. Paulo and Franz have shown that, I ain't gonna say they're ready to win a title necessarily, but they've shown that they're ready to be very competitive. And in my opinion, and really in today's NBA, you have to be able to scale building around your young player while also keeping and being able to afford the team at the same time. And also, this is your second bite at the apple. My parameters when it comes to having a superstar level player is, to me, you have 3 stages and 3 different bites at the apple to build a team around said player. You can look at most of NBA history. You can go back and look before a player gets traded or forces their way out. Typically, for the most part, teams usually have 3 iterations before that player's gone. And to me, this is, even though Paulo's extremely young, I think they're entering the second phase with the with building around Paolo. That first phase was these last 2 trips that they got to the playoffs with Paolo and Franz and Jalen Suggs. Now they're adding Bane. So now this team for the next, I would say probably at least 3 years, this will be the second phase of the team, in my opinion. And I really like the trade for this team. This team needed offense. They've never lacked defense. This team's always needed another shot maker, another playmaker. So I like it. I like this trade a lot for them. Yes, the draft capital they gave up was a lot. It was a lot, no doubt. I don't agree with how much they gave up. But I had to take a second. I had to kind of step back and rationalize with myself like, okay, Phillip, they gave up a lot, but I think in the end it will be worth it because God forbid, even if they don't win a title with this core, they're going to gain so much experience that when Paolo gets to the peak of his prime, he should be able to deliver the goods. He should be able to deliver a title potentially to Orlando by that point. But I just think they gave up too much, but I think it's worth it. I think it was worth it, and it'd be worth it towards the end of it. And also this is year 1 with this core. They got a very, very solid bench, in my opinion. And I think a successful year looks like in year 1 for this team is them getting to the second round, but going at least to 6 or 7 games, like a tough 6 or 7 game series, is to me what defines a really good year for this team. And you guys also gotta remember, Paulo's not in his prime yet. He'll only be 23 in November, so he has such a long runway. And the dude's already been to the playoffs twice. And I always say, the sooner you can get to the playoffs, the better off you're going to be. And that is for any sport. That's not just for basketball. That's for football, baseball, even soccer. If you can get deep into soccer tournaments, I'm very big on that. That's why I was very happy they made this move. Because to me, it's like, okay, they're like, well, shoot, what our current core is, we've been able to have really tough first round series. Let's push a couple chips forward and let's see if we can get to the conference finals or to the NBA finals. Let's try to push this envelope a little bit. And so I think this was a good move by them, and I think it is going to pay off for sure because, again, Paolo's only 23, and he's already been to the playoffs twice. So he's already, in my opinion, already projected to probably get to a couple conference finals and is probably very likely to get at least to 1, maybe 2 NBA finals in his career is what I'm projecting, in my opinion, just based off of so far what he's already done. Sorry. I just have to go on that little tangent with you guys. But so also another thing that I'll be looking out for with this team is how do they handle late game situations, like rotation wise and play style wise. We know Paolo is going to have the ball in his hands a lot, but also I'm going to be interested to see who will be orchestrating the offense leading into that. Is it going to be Bane? Will it be Suggs? Do they use Tyus Jones in late game situations? I'm very interested to see late game wise how this team looks. Another thing, and lastly, and I'm pretty sure this is for a lot of NBA teams, but specifically this team since they decided to bring Bane on, and I would say most likely Paolo is going to get that 30% kicker to his contract. I'm interested to see how do they manage their cap space moving forward. It's going to be really interesting. What is going very, very well for this Orlando team is they do have a lot of young guys on this team. So they should be able to pay their young guys a reasonable salary amount while also keeping their top 4 guys' salaries where they are. So I think they're set up pretty well, but I'll be lying to you guys if that's something I wasn't paying attention to with this team. So now I want to go into players to watch for on this team. So kind of just slightly hinted on it. And that is I labeled this as 24 and under. So players that are 24 and under. Tristan Da Silva, Noah Penda, Anthony Black, Jace Richardson, Jet Howard. I think they have quality rotational pieces in 4 of these players. For me, the jury's still out on Jet Howard, though. I want to see him play more meaningful minutes just so I can kind of get a better idea of who he is. Like, obviously, yes, he's a good three-point shooter, but I kind of just want to see more out of him, I think if they just hit on 4 of those other players, though, I think they're in a great spot for years to come, which I feel pretty confident. They hit on Tristan Da Silva. I said that last year when they drafted him. I felt like that was a steal. I think they obviously, we know who Anthony Black is. I think Anthony Black's a very solid backup, if you want to call him a point guard to a small forward, depending on how you view him as a player. But he's kind of a Swiss Army knife. I like him coming off the bench for them. I think Noah Penda will bring value to this team, and I think Jace Richardson as well. So I think they're going to be good. The most important thing is just watching the development of these players is basically what's going to be on my radar this year for this team and how many of these guys are playing and what they look like. Obviously, Da Silva's going to get his minutes. Black's going to get his minutes. And for the years to come, in the next 2 years, we're going to see more of Noah Penda and Jace Richardson, and we'll see what happens with Jet Howard. But yeah, I like their bench. I like the idea and the makeup of some of these bench players that they got, and I think Tristan Da Silva's set to have he had a very, I would say, modest rookie year. I think he's going to kind of make his presence known and who he is as a player known a little bit more around amongst the NBA world this upcoming year. Like I said, I liked him a lot coming out of Colorado, so I expect big things out of him. Another player is Jalen Suggs. So he had a rough year last year. He dealt with injuries, and even when he played, he kind of regressed from the prior year, in my opinion. I look for him to have a bounce back year. I think less ball handling, and I think more time of being able to do the little things. And adding Bane to the lineup, I think, is going to actually help him a lot as a player. So that's something else I'll be looking out for. Now I want to talk about their draft capital. 2026 will go to Memphis or Charlotte. 27, they keep it. 28 goes to Portland. 29, top two. It's top two protected, so they'll keep it. 3 through 30, Memphis has swap rights. 2030 goes to Memphis. 2031 and 2032 is owned. You guys let me know down in the comment section below. What is your opinions about this Orlando Magic team, and what players will you guys be looking out for? The next team that I want to talk to you guys about is the Miami Heat. Miami last year finished 37 and 45. They finished 21st in offensive efficiency and 9th in defensive efficiency. Free agents, just for a side note, Tyler Hero may be on his way out of Miami. He has 2 years left on his deal. They didn't extend him coming off of the kind of year he had last year, which was like a career year. So just something I wanted to note to you guys. Terry Rozier, Norman Powell, and Simone Fontecchio, they're all free agents. Andrew Wiggins has a player option, and Nikola Jovic is a restricted free agent. Rookie watch, they drafted my guy Kaspas Giacochonis, my boy from Illinois. I've been talking about him since last summer. Since he was playing since he played in the FIBA U tournament, I've been high on Giacochonis. Anyways, so I kind of just want to talk about him slightly with you guys. To me, his play style, his play style. I'm not saying he's this player or he's going to become this player, but he plays similar to Luka, in my opinion. My biggest concern for him, and it's been consistent from the day that I've found him as a player, and I said it all last summer, said it during my post-draft episode this summer, is his turnovers. Him having moments where he faces a double team and he freezes up and he panics. Like, he does not handle getting double teamed out of the pick and roll that well. I think being in Miami will be great for him, though, for discipline, just the discipline of it, discipline of the game and discipline of knowing how to handle those situations. I think is really going to benefit him being in Miami's system. I'm really hoping to see him actually get some. I'm hoping to really see him get some playing time in this system this upcoming year. I hope he's not in the doghouse. He's probably going to be the Hawks, truth be told. Most rookies are in Miami. Because as soon as he's turning over the ball, they're taking him out the lineup. But I think long-term, he probably will be the long-term starting point guard for this team. Again, I told you guys the whole thing about Tyler Hero. Terry Rozier is about to be off the team. So I think it's likely they're going to lean on him. Obviously, probably not this year. We'll see what they end up doing with him this year. But I like Giacochonis. I like him a lot as a player. I liked him last summer. Like I said, his biggest problem to me is his turnovers. Can he get that under control? I think if he can get that under control, then he'll be an NBA starting point guard. He'll be fine. Everything else to me is fine about him. I just don't like his jump shot. Not his jump shot. I don't like him turning over the ball. I'm sorry. And then my team expectations / thoughts about this team. Last year, like I just told you guys, Tyler Hero had a breakout year. He gave you 77 games. That was the most in his career. I don't expect that at all to happen this year for this player. I think the biggest thing, in my opinion, and what I think Miami should do is I do think they should trade Tyler Hero and trade Bam Adebayo. Clearly, long-term, both of these players are not getting it done. Unless you plan on packaging Ware, Jovic, Jaime, and X amount of draft picks and go get Giannis, which is possible. I'm not ruling that out. But unless you're planning on doing that, I think you should get off of Tyler Hero and Bam, why their value is what it is. Because in 2028, Charlotte owns their pick, and it's unprotected. So if I'm Miami, you have Jokic, you have Ware, so you got your point guard, you got your center, you got Jaime, which Jaime is your small forward, and then you got Jovic, who's your power forward. If I'm Miami, I'm tanking this year, and I'm tanking next year. So then that way you get a chance to potentially add a top, 5 player or top 8 player this year, and then same thing the following year next year. Like, if I'm Miami, I'm not going to play that game. But knowing Miami, more likely than not, they're stubborn, they're hard-headed, they're not going to tank. They're going to keep this team what it is. And I think at best, this team will finish they probably win maybe 43 games is probably what they'll win. But I don't know. I'm not really high on. I know they got Norman Powell, but I just don't like that pairing of Tyler Hero and Norman Powell. And I think we've seen the best years of Andrew Wiggins already in Golden State, and Terry Rozier is washed, in my opinion. So, yeah, sorry, my Heat fans. You guys are kind of in a weird situation, because if Pat Riley's going to be hard-headed, then you're going to roll out the same team. But I do think they should tank, for sure. I think this is a great time to trade Tyler Hero. For Tyler Hero, you probably can get two, maybe 3 first-round picks. Bam Adebayo, you for sure can get 3 first-round picks for Bam. I'm getting off of both players if I'm the Miami Heat, and that's just my opinion about it. So I want to go ahead and I also want to give some love to Khalil Ware. Khalil Ware he was somebody that I told you guys last year was one of my draft sleepers. He didn't disappoint me at all. There was times even during the year, though, I felt like Miami kept holding him back and putting him in the doghouse, taking him out. That'll really mess with a player's confidence, in my opinion. So I think that's something that kind of we need to pay attention to this year and see if they do that to him again, or if they're really going to let him really just show who he is as a player. So that's something I'll be paying attention to with him. Anyways, let's go to players to watch for. One of the guys is Nikola Jovic. He was on my players list last year. I'm pretty sure he was. I just want to see him with the ball more in his hands personally, and also want to see the offense be ran through him more. Also, it's a contract year for him, so they got to play him, and they got to see what they got in this player. And, yeah, I like Nikola Jovic. I really, really do. His play style, it's weird. His play style, to me, is it's like a shorter version of Nikola Jokic, if that makes sense. Like, he kind of plays like Jokic. He's just shorter and skinnier, in my opinion. That's just my opinion about it. But, yeah, so I want to see him with the ball more in his hands for sure in this offense. I doubt it's going to happen, really, since they signed Norman Powell. But we'll see. We'll see what happens and what they do with him. Again, it's a contract year, so something got to give with him. Another is I wrote down Eric Spoelstra. I wrote him down because I'm interested to see how does he go about using his young guys. Does he play them willingly, or will he be forced due to injuries with some of their older guys? Because Norman Powell gets hurt a lot. Tyler Hero's known for getting hurt. And even Andrew Wiggins. I'm just very interested to see how does Eric Spoelstra go about navigating using some of those young guys he got on his bench mixed with his vets. Now I want to talk about their draft capital. So 2026, they have their own. 2027, they have top 14 is protected, and they have it. Otherwise, 15 to 30 will go to the Hornets. So in 2027, if they do give the pick to the Hornets, then in 28, they'll have their pick back. But if they don't give the pick to the Hornets in 27, then in 2028, it goes straight to the Hornets and it's unprotected. So, I mean, best bet is for them to, kind of falter on this year or just be mindful of their... Yeah, I think 2027, they need to tank. They need to tank like I told you guys. This year and next year, they need to tank so they can keep their pick both times. Because what's the point of getting a number, having to trade your pick to New Orleans, to the Hornets, and not be a championship team? They're just stuck in a weird place, in my opinion. From 29 to 32, they have their own. You guys let me know down in the comment section below. What are your thoughts on the Miami Heat? And what do you guys think they should do? Do you think they should hold on to the current team? Or should they do what I said? Should they trade Tyler Hero and Bam You guys let me know down in the comment section below. The next team that I want to talk to you guys about is the Charlotte Hornets. Now, Charlotte last year finished 19-63, 29th in offensive efficiency, 24th in defensive efficiency. Now, let's talk about some of their free agents. So, Colin Sexton will be a free agent. Pat Connaughton will be a free agent. Spencer Dinwiddie will be a free agent. And Mason Plumlee will be a free agent. Rookie watch, they drafted my boy Con Knippel from Duke. Yes, sir. I think what we could see, I think it's very similar to how his college career started off. At the beginning of his college year last year, it was so frustrating. He was on such a shooting slump. There was a lot of games early in the year we should have won, but he was just on a shooting slump. I think that's similar to what's probably going to happen in the NBA, in my opinion. I think it's probably going to take him probably about 20 games for him to settle in. I think there's a possibility he does start. I think it just depends on how he looks in camp, and I think it also depends on if they decide to start Colin Sexton or not. But I love Con Knippel as a player. I loved him at Duke. I loved him before he even went to Duke. I even said before the year even start, I said that I think he has a chance to lead Duke in scoring or be the second leading scorer on Duke, and he ended up being the second leading scorer on Duke. So I like Con a lot as a player. He's not going to wow you with his athleticism, but he's going to fundamentally kill you as a basketball player. I like him a lot as a player. I don't like the draft pick for the Hornets. I really don't, just because I felt like they already had a lot of offense anyways. I was hoping that I was hoping VJ Edgecombe was going to drop to them. That's what I was hoping they would have drafted, but they drafted my boy Con. And so we'll see what happens with that. They also drafted Liam McNeely. I think he's an ideal rotational player. He's going to give them solid effort on the boards, and he's going to knock down he's a knockdown 3-point shooter. UConn relied on him way too much, in my opinion. I think he'll benefit from going to his natural role that he kind of played at Montverde, which was basically an off-the-ball type of player, like coming off of screens and stuff. That's more of his game. And not being a primary ball handler like he was at UConn. I just thought they just misused him. I think he'll be fine. I think he'll be solid and be a solid rotational player. They also drafted Ryan Kalkbrenner. He went to Creighton. So in my opinion, he's one of the most interesting rookies, in my opinion, just because the Hornets center spot is extremely questionable. So I'm interested to see if he can find himself in that starting spot with a strong camp and a strong preseason. He dominated the Big East defensively. He won the Defensive Player of the Year in the Big East 4 years in a row. But he is a slower guy. He is pretty slow. But I'm interested to see if he could become a dark horse Rookie of the Year. And could he start on this team? I'm just interested to see. We'll see, and that's something that I want to throw out to you guys because it's a possibility. It is a possibility. I won't rule it out because if you look at their center rotation and their center depth, it is questionable, extremely questionable. Another player they drafted, another Duke alum actually, is my boy Sion James. Sion James was great at Duke before he went to Duke. He went to, I believe, Rice is where he transferred from. But I told you guys this last year during the college basketball season. I'll tell you again here if you didn't hear what I told you guys about him. And I said it during the post-draft episode as well. But his play style is very similar to Lou Dort, is who he is. He's a very physical defender. And I won't be surprised if he finds himself on the court because of his defensive ability and his defensive tenacity. Okay, so that's somebody you guys may see in their rotation at a point. Team expectations / thoughts. I think the East is going to slightly be more open this year. They had 3 top 6 picks in the last 3 years. They still got LaMelo. They've added some vets. To me, they got to at least make the play-in this year. I think it's play-in or bust, in my opinion. If they don't make the play-in at least, you got to trade LaMelo, in my opinion. Like, it's that serious. It's that serious at this point. This backcourt, to me, is enough. The largest concern is their front court. Like I told you guys, Grant Williams starting at center. He's thick, but I don't know about him anchoring a defense necessarily for a whole season. I don't like that. And that's why I brought up Ryan, because I think Ryan or Diabate is going to have to step up. some's got to give there. I think health is obviously going to be the biggest key this year for this team with LaMelo, with Brandon Miller. I think both of these players at least got to play 65 to 70 games together. Okay, I just think they got to play. Okay, I'm going to say 65 to 70 games together because unfortunately in today's NBA, that's a lot. But at least I would say they got to at least play 50 to 55 games together. Like, these two guys got to be on the court, man. Just plain and simple, they got to be on the court. And then also, another big thing is, can they get enough stops to win games? I mean, a lot of high-scoring games might be the recipe for them to win. Them just, being a running gun type of team and just having games that are up in the 120s might be the recipe to win. But they got to also be able to get timely stops, and that's something that I'll be paying attention to with this team. But yeah, so players to watch for on this team. I just said his name is LaMelo. How many more years do you give LaMelo with this team? To me, he got to get it done this year. They got to tap the playoffs, man. They got to tap the playoffs. This is year 6 for him. Him and Brandon Miller, they need to cut down on their three-point attempts as well. We got one of them taking 10 threes a game. We got the other taking 11 a game. And to me, that's way too much for dudes that are 6'7" and 6'8", respectfully. I just think that's unacceptable. If this is another failed year for LaMelo, like I told you guys, he's got to go. He's got to go at that point. I just think he has to go. Another player is Tijani Solano. To me, he's really someone they really need to take a leap, specifically on the defensive end. His offense isn't why they drafted him. They drafted him for his defensive versatility potential, in my opinion. So we need to see more on that end from him this year. So that's something I'll be paying attention to. And now let's talk about their draft capital. So 2026, they have their own, and then they also have the least favorable of Phoenix, Orlando, the Wizards, or Memphis. 2027, they have their own, and then they also have Dallas's pick if it falls 3 through 30, and then they also have Miami's pick if it falls 15 through 30. 2028, they have their own, and then if Miami's pick don't convey in 27, they have Miami's pick unprotected in 28. 29, they have their own, and they also have the least favorable of Utah, Cleveland, or Minnesota 6 through 30. And then 2030 to 2032, they have their own pick. You guys let me know down in the comment section below, what are your thoughts about this Charlotte Hornets team, and what do you think they should do with LaMelo? Now, the last team I want to talk to you guys about is the Washington Wizards. Washington last year, they finished 18-64. Oh, man, so bad. Offensively, they finished 30th, and defensively, they finished 27th. Free agencies, Chris Middleton is a free agent. CJ McCollum's a free agent. Malachi Branham is a restricted free agent. Marvin Bagley's a free agent. Corey Kesper trade, potentially. To me, he doesn't fit the young guys' timeline, and he's taking up minutes from some of them. He has a great value contract, so look out for him to potentially be moved is what I want to tell you guys. Rookie watch. They drafted my guy, Trey Johnson, easily one of my favorite rookies coming in. I talked about him last summer. I talked about him during the season, and I talked about him during the draft process. He's one of my top 3s for Rookie of the Year, easily. It's no doubt about it. He's a scoring dynamo. I expect him to be starting no later than probably by Thanksgiving. Shoot, he might actually start opening night. Like, I love Trey Johnson. I love him. I'm very excited to watch him get loose with the rock. No doubt. Arguably the best pure scorer coming out of this draft. I love him a lot. I just love him. Another player they drafted was Will Riley from Illinois. I think most likely he probably won't play that much this year. I think most likely he'll have rotational opportunities probably next year. I think his ceiling to me is a poor man's Michael Porter Jr. I think that's his ceiling. Will Riley, he had a really slow start at Illinois. A lot of people don't know this, and I'll tell you guys this because I talked about him last year too. He was on my top 30 kid to watch out for going into college, but he was actually the number 1 rated kid coming out of Canada. But Will Riley had a very slow start in his with Illinois last year. He really came on strong going into the Big Ten tournament and then going into the NCAA tournament. He actually came on pretty strong towards the back end of the year, which I thought was, I think that benefited him a lot with his draft stock. So now, sorry you guys, sorry we got it. Now I want to talk about the team's expectations / thoughts. I really like their GM. I actually talked about him during my post-draft episode quite a bit. I just want to say it again. He's done a really good job. He's done a really good job up to this point, in my opinion. He's created future cap space for this team. He got some draft assets, which I'll get ready to name to you guys a little bit later on. And he has a draft. He drafted defensive first, except obviously this draft where he drafted Trey Johnson. But he's drafted defense his last couple of drafts. So I really like him a lot. I think this more likely than not will be another lottery year for them, which I think is fine because I believe they need to add one more offensive player before they really can take a jump to making the play-in. I think Trey Johnson can be your number one or number two player offensively, but I do think they could use one more option, in my opinion. And if I were them, I would try to trade for a middle-of-the-pack all-star and try to maybe get into the play-in ASAP, just so these young guys can get the experience while they're on such cheap contracts. Maybe trade 2 of those picks they got from other teams and package it with CJ or Middleton is what I would do this year if I was this team. And I'm not saying if these young guys are showing promise this year and you believe you got a chance to make the play-in because the East is going to be a little bit lesser this year, then yeah, I would package some of these picks. And like I said, I'll talk about their picks in a second with you guys, but I would try to package maybe 1 or 2 of these picks, try to maybe get like a middle-of-the-pack player that's like a budding all-star, or maybe like an all-star player that's like in the back end of their prime. Somebody that can help these young kids tap the playoffs. Because I always tell you guys, the sooner you can get to the playoffs, the better, okay? Doesn't matter if they get swept. It's just the fact of them gaining the experience, understanding what part of their games they need to work on in the offseason is what's most important, in my opinion. I always say this about the playoffs, that in my opinion, I think the early parts of the playoffs kind of shows team weaknesses, also player weaknesses. But then I also believe once you get into the NBA Finals shows superstars and all-star weaknesses. So I think it's important to get in as soon as possible so you know what you need to work on. So that's why I said that about them, because some people are probably like, what do you mean this team is not good enough to make the play-in? I'm saying if these young guys can show that they can get there, or if there's a player that can be grabbed that can help these young guys get there, I would make the trade if I was the Wizards. I'm just saying I wouldn't give up a lot. Like I said, I'll give them maybe 2 of the picks or maybe 3 and then package it with CJ and Middleton. Because like I said, when I talk to you guys in a bit about their draft capital, you're going to be like, okay, I understand why you're saying that. Anyways, players to watch for with this team. One is Keyshawn George. I think he's a 3-and-D player at worst, but I can for sure see him becoming something more than that down the line. Also, I want to also say this, that their GM Dawkins, he said during the post-draft press conference that he had, he said that he believed that George is going to have a big year because he's seen him in the gym religiously. We know managers always say that kind of stuff, but that's something I still just kind of want to throw out to you guys to watch out for George to take another leap this year. Another player is Bud Carrington. I'm very interested to see how he looks with the full season of being the starting point guard. I really want to see his efficiency and his assists come up. And I'm also wondering if his play style will elevate everyone around him as he's playing point guard, or is he more of a shooting guard? That's something that I'll be trying to figure out this year with a larger and more consistent sample size of who he is as a player. I did like him coming out of Pitt, but again, I kind of just want to see what I just told you guys. I just want to see if he's actually a point guard or if he's more of a combo guard who's going to play point/shooting guard is what I'm very interested to see with him. Another player, and probably the most obvious player, you guys will probably agree with me, is Cam Whitmore. He asked for the opportunities to be on a team where he's getting opportunities. Here he goes. I've been a fan of his game since he was at Villanova. Cam was actually one of the people I talked about when I was doing an audio podcast 2 years ago. I think the main thing with him is him learning how to play team ball and also keeping his emotions in control, really, since it's going to be on a younger team as well. So a lot of these young guys are not going to know how to deal with that, and they may try to fire back at him. So him being a better locker room guy, I'm hoping to see that come about from him. Those are kind of the main things I'll be watching out for him. I think his game at worst, he's a rotational offensive player. So he has value regardless, in my opinion. But I think the attitude and play style will determine what he can become. If he can become more than just a rotational player coming off the bench. His attitude and his play style, how he plays with his teammates, I think is going to determine what else he has and what else he can give to this team, because I think he has more to offer. I just want to see him get those things under control this year, and I think being with the Wizards is going to give him a good opportunity to show that. Draft capital wise, 2026, the Wizards could swap. If both the Wizards and Phoenix picks are both top 8, then the Wizards' top 8 pick goes to Memphis. If the Wizards picks fall to 9, then it goes to the Knicks. Memphis gets Phoenix pick regardless if it's top 8 or not. And then they also get the least favorable of OKC, Houston's 5 through 30, and the Clippers and the Clippers pick. So the Wizards most likely are going to have 2 first-round picks. They're probably going to have their own pick, and then they're going to have either OKC, Houston. They're going to have a late first-round pick because it's the least favorable. So they're going to have a late first from either OKC, Houston, or the Clippers is what's going to happen. The Wizards are going to have 2 first-round picks regardless. But it is going to be very pivotal to watch to see where Phoenix and the Wizards place, because that's going to kind of determine kind of what if the Wizards get their own pick or if their picks goes to the Knicks. It's going to be interesting to figure out. But they're going to have 2 first-round picks in this draft. Most likely, they're going to finish in the top 8 in the lottery. 2027, they have their. Yeah, I wanted to apologize to you guys that the camera kind of cut off for a second there. But yeah, so 2028, basically, they're either going to get either Brooklyn, Philly, Phoenix pick is what I'm thinking in 28. It was just very messy what I was reading. I just couldn't figure out exactly what it is. 29, they have their own, and then they have the second most favorable of Portland, Boston, and the Bucks. 2030, they get the most favorable of their pick or Phoenix pick. And then they also get the Warriors pick if it falls 21 to 30. And then 2031 and 2032, they have their own pick. You guys, let me know down in the comment section below, what is your opinion about the Washington Wizards, and what do you think they should do, and what are your expectations for this team going into this year? You guys let me know down in the comment section below. But I also want to let you guys know, thank you for checking out the PJ Hoop podcast. And next week, we'll be kicking it off. We'll be going into the Western Conference, starting off with the Pacific Division. PJ is out.